Okay, guys, today we're going to review what we looked at yesterday, talking about some of these famous abolitionists and conductors on the Underground Railroad. So, got a little 3-page text I want to read with you, and then you'll have some questions to answer, kind of review yesterday and today's lesson. And now, remember, I'm going to put this text on your little question assignment, so you won't have to go back to these slides unless you just want to read it. It'll also be on your question assignment, all right? So let's look at this text today, which reviews what we learned yesterday. This text is called Up from Slavery. Thousands of enslaved people in the South tried to escape. Excuse me, and a coughing fit as soon as I started reading. Here we go. Thousands of enslaved people in the South tried to escape to the North. Most of them didn't make it. They were caught, beaten, and returned to slavery. So remember, slavery in the South was how people were making their living in these big plantations, these big farms. They were making their money with slave labor. And of course, they didn't pay their slaves for doing all the work that they did. They just got money for selling the catch crops. So these slaves were trying to escape. They were treated terribly, but most of them tried to escape, didn't make it. And they would get caught, they would get beaten and returned back, treated even worse than they had been before. However, a few who tried to escape from slavery made it to freedom. Some even went on to write books and make speeches about their experiences, which helped many Americans realize what slavery was really like. Sojourner Truth, this is her picture in 1870. Remember, she's the one that gave the Ain't I a Woman speech we looked at yesterday. Sojourner Truth ran away from her New York slaveholder in 1826. Back then, slavery was still legal in New York. Born under the slave name of Bella, or Belle, she changed her name to Sojourner Truth in 1840s and began speaking against slavery at churches and abolitionist meetings. Truth's most famous speech was made to the Ohio Women's Rights Convention in 1851. Having listened to several white women talk about the need for women's rights, Truth pointed out that black women should be helped as well. Here's part of her speech we listened to yesterday. That man over there says that women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best places everywhere, she said. Nobody ever helps me into carriages or over mud puddles and gives me any best place, and ain't I a woman? So remember her for her Ain't I a Woman speech. And then Frederick Douglass, we talked about him yesterday as well. Frederick Douglass escaped at about the age of 20, making the journey from his slaveholder's home in Maryland to the free state of Pennsylvania. Douglass and his wife later moved to Boston. Inspired by the newspapers such as The Liberator, he became an active abolitionist, wanted to stop slavery. Douglass's autobiography came out in 1845 and had a huge impact on the abolitionist world. His narrative was written in the strains of his narrative is written in strains of stirring eloquence and power, an Ohio newspaper said at the time. It will fall upon the ears of the nation like a mighty bombshell and awake it from its sleep. There's 2 pictures of Frederick Douglass, 1847, young man, and 1876, he got a bit older, hadn't he? After his autobiography came out, Douglass became internationally famous. After touring Europe for 2 years, he came back to America and started his own newspaper, the North Star. In 1863, Douglass was received in the White House and spent several minutes with President Lincoln. Perhaps you may want to know how the President of the United States received a black man at the White House, he later said. I will tell you how he received me, just as you've seen one gentleman receive another, with a hand and a voice well balanced between a kind cordiality and a respectful reserve. I tell you, I felt big there. In other words, he's saying Abraham Lincoln treated him very nicely when he invited him to the White House, treated him just like he was a regular human being and not a former slave. Another third person we talked about yesterday was Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman was an enslaved woman who went by the name Minty when she ran away from her Maryland slaveholder in 1849. Years later, she wrote about what it was like when she got to Philadelphia and realized she was free. She said, when I found I had crossed that line, I looked at my hands to see if I was the same person. She said, there was such a glory over everything. The sun came like gold through the trees and over the fields, and I felt like I was in heaven. Boy, if you'd been a slave and got to escape to freedom, It would feel like heaven, wouldn't it? Tubman couldn't bear the thought that she had left family members behind. So a few weeks later, she went back and helped them escape. Then she went back again and again. In fact, Tubman made 13 trips back to Maryland and helped about 70 slaves escape, traveling at night and staying in the homes of abolitionists along the way. Today, we suspect that her appearance, she was a tiny woman, helped hide the fact that she helped so many slaves find their freedom. I was a conductor on the Underground Railroad for 8 years, she later said, referring to the secret network of people who helped slaves escape. And I can say what most conductors can't say. I never ran my train off the track, and I never lost a passenger. What an amazing woman. Now, tomorrow, we're going to watch a video on Harriet Tubman and see some of the amazing things in cartoon style that she did. If you look up here, there's a $300 reward for a runaway slave for Harriet Tubman. It's kind of hard to read. Ran away from the subscriber on Monday the 17th. 3 Negroes named as follows. Harry, about 19 years. I can't read some of these, but it gives some description. Ben, Minty is what she went by, about 27 years old. They're offering $100 reward will be given for each. So if you caught all 3 of them and brought them back, you'd get $300. Wow. So they would offer rewards to bring their slaves back. Now, she was sneaky. She would sneak and help them escape and then go back and get more. And nobody could ever catch her. She was so sneaky. All right. Well, we've got those questions to answer today about this text. So I want you to go answer them. Remember, I'm putting the text at the top of the questions, so you don't have to go back to these slides unless you just want to. All right. Go answer them. Try to make a 100. Find your answer in the text so that you can make a 100. Let's everybody shoot for straight A's this 9 weeks. All right. See you later.